Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video. It is going to be my final declutter of 2025 and today we are going through my entire eyeshadow palette collection. I have 212 eyeshadow palettes that we are going to be going through today, and I will say my mindset around my palette collection has definitely changed this year. In the past, I never would have been comfortable letting go of some of my Natasha Denona palettes, Pat McGrath, or just other palettes that feel more like a collector's item to me. And by that I mean like I have almost every Natasha Denona Midi palette, so like it feels like I'm collecting them at this point in time. But I just feel so overwhelmed by my palette collection, and I also know that I love to test and try new eyeshadow palettes. So this is not me saying like I'm gonna declutter my collection and then not buy any more palettes. I want to pass palettes along to friends and family who are going to get more love and use out of them than I would, and free up space in my collection that I feel like I can still love some of the things that I love in my collection, but also still bring in new eyeshadow palettes to test and try, which is one of the main things that I love to do on my channel. So we're going through all my eyeshadow palettes today, and I really was trying to be as cutthroat as possible, so I hope that you guys enjoy. I would love to know if you plan to get rid of or declutter any eyeshadow palettes in your collection before the season is over. Let a girl know in the comments below. Other than that, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project planning content, palette themed content, or just hanging out and chit-chatting about makeup, that's what we do over in this channel. So I hope you'll consider subscribing before moving on. I will also leave my declutter playlist down below in case you're interested in checking out any of my other declutters, both from this year or years past. Other than that, let's jump into the declutter. All right, you guys, we are here. I'm gonna do my best to go in alphabetical order so I can kind of keep track of everything, make sure I don't miss anything. I'm also gonna update my eyeshadow palette inventory spreadsheet as we go along. So starting with my ABH palettes, these two are newest to my collection this year. So should I zoom you in? Up first, we have my ABH Haze palette, which is my newest to my collection. I did do a full dedicated video to this. I don't necessarily know what all I'm gonna have in the description box down below, but perhaps if I have full dedicated reviews to things, I will try and leave those linked. I am gonna keep the Haze. I think this is a really beautiful 9-pan palette. I like these little 9-pans that ABH is doing now. They are just kind of more up my alley these days in terms of like what I'm looking for. These color stories are both really easy to work with. So the Haze is a really beautiful cool toned palette with a pop of blue. I'm going to keep this, as well as the Embers palette, which in my opinion and many others is a dupe for the old ABH Master palettes, the ABH Mario Master palette, whatever it was. This is so beautiful as well, and I also did a dedicated video with this. That's also going to stay. Then I have my ABH Cosmos palette. I actually really enjoyed this palette as well. I love the top row of shimmers. I did a look that I absolutely loved using this shade Galaxy even, which I think is so fun. Normally I don't love a matte with glitter running throughout, but I actually really enjoy that shade. I did not get around to reaching for this one. I don't know if I've reached for this at all this year. I guess we'll find out when I do my year-end eyeshadow palettes that have gone unused. But I do love this palette, and this is definitely one I want to return to soon. I think it's beautiful. Definitely gonna keep that. And I also do really like my ABH Nouveau palette. I think this is another really beautiful one. I like that we have these kind of like desaturated mattes. I love the pop of lilac. Love the shade Lily here. I think that is such a beautiful kind of rose gold with almost some like pink or lavender sparkle running throughout it. It's such a pretty shade. I also love the shade Belle. I really do enjoy this palette. This one I have reached for this year. And then I love my Artist Couture Supreme Nudes palette. This has been one of my favorite palettes in my collection for quite some time, so this one is also staying. Moving on to my Alter Ego palettes. Okay, this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. I really like the Alter Ego formula. I am an affiliate with Alter Ego, so if you're ever ordering from their site, you can use my code. I believe it's itsjustSteph. I'll post it on the screen. You can use my code to save some money. I really like their quality. They are a dupe brand, which I know is not everyone's cup of tea, but you know what? Sometimes it is nice to just get things at a less expensive cost, especially when they're duping somewhat problematic brands in some situations. So up first, I know for sure I'm going to be keeping my Ultra Ego Canyon palette. This is inspired by the Natasha Denona bronze palette, which I actually don't own, and I love this one from Ultra Ego. I actually get a ton of use out of this. I have no pan left behind it, this palette, a couple of years in a row now. I love this one in the summer. It is a palette that I love to have in my collection, so that is gonna stay. Then many of these I have the dupe palettes for, so I feel like it's, we're gonna see. So I have the Sundown palette from Ultra Ego. This one is inspired by, I believe it's the Natasha Denona My Dream palette, which I actually do plan to declutter my dream. What I like about the Ultra Ego version of this is it's laid out in a way that kind of just like makes more sense to me. However, I just don't know that it's a color story that I'm just inspired by, and I want to have space in my collection to reach for things that do inspire and excite me. It's tricky because I love the shade Luster, and I love the shade Afterglow. They're really beautiful, really sparkly, but I think I'm going to declutter this one. I don't think I will miss this, and there's so many other palettes, so many other color stories I'd rather reach for, and if I have less eyeshadow palettes in my collection, it just means more time that can be spent with the palettes that I do really love and I'm inspired by the color story. Okay, I'm gonna pass Sundown along. Then I have the Daylight palette, which is inspired by the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude eyeshadow palette, which I do own. And I really love my Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. I really enjoyed this as well. Again, I think it's really good quality, especially if you don't support Natasha Denona or you don't want to spend Natasha Denona money. I like the Ultra Ego. You do get a nice mirror with them. They are magnetized, so you can mix and match your shades. They have really beautiful sparkle to them as well. I just feel like if I'm trying to free up space in my collection to be able to get use out of more things in my collection while still knowing that I love to test and try eyeshadow, so I'm always going to have eyeshadow coming and going, I don't think it makes sense for me to keep two palettes with the exact same color story essentially. So I am going to pass along the Daylight palette. I think any of the Ultra Ego palettes I get rid of or declutter, I can pass along to my daughter. I feel like this has a really beginner friendly eyeshadow formula. Technically they'd still then be in my household, so if I ever needed them for comparison reasons or what have you, I would still have access to them. But I am going to pass along the Daylight palette. Then we have the Sunlit Dreams palette. This got sent to me right smack dab in the middle of first trimester, which was brutal for me, and I really was down and out for the count, so I was barely doing my makeup. I barely felt like I was alive at that point in time, so I didn't end up getting up a video comparing this to the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm eyeshadow palette. I do own I Need a Warm, and I really enjoy I Need a Warm. I actually don't think I've even reached for I Need a Warm though this year. Again, having a couple months where I was barely reaching for makeup really kind of put me behind on how much I'm reaching for my shadows, so that's another reason I want to be a little bit more ruthless. Even looking into this though, I'm like, ugh, the shade Bronze down here looks so pretty. But again, I just don't think I need to keep eyeshadow palettes that like with the same color story. So I'm gonna pass along Sunlit Dreams. Again, I can pass that one along to my daughter. Then I have Amber Glow here, which is inspired by the Natasha Denona Golden palette, which I have and love. I did a full dedicated review to this, comparing this to the Golden. I think it is an excellent dupe palette, again, especially if you're not looking to spend the money. I am going to pass this one along simply because I have the Natasha Denona Golden and I love that one as well, but I've no pen left behind of this. I created so many looks with this palette that I loved this year. Excellent quality, beautiful outer packaging, would highly recommend, but I just don't need multiples of everything. Then I have the Ultra Ego Mist Haven palette, which is inspired by the Huda Beauty Grunge eyeshadow palette, which I barely reach for the grunge palette. Therefore, I don't feel like I need, I especially don't need to keep this one. I still haven't decided if I'm even going to keep the grunge palette, but I will pass along Ultra Ego Mist Haven. I am, however, going to keep my Ultra Ego Artemis palette. I feel like this makes it through every declutter and every single time I keep this, I'm like, I really need to reach for this more. And I don't know the last time I reached into this eyeshadow palette, but I look at it and it's so beautiful. I love the color story. I do not have the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. I feel like that's one of those eyeshadow palettes that feels like the one that got away. I never ended up buying it, and it is like one of the palettes I most regret not buying. So I am gonna keep Artemis, and hopefully I do end up reaching for this at some point. All right, and then I just have my Adept palettes, which I haven't bought an Adept palette in over a year. I just feel like it's like a pricier indie brand, and I just haven't purchased from them in a while, but I do really love their palettes, their quality, and their formulas. So this is the Flying Fiddles. This is a beautiful eyeshadow palette. I really enjoy this. I don't know if I've reached for this one this year, maybe 1 or 2 times, which is such a shame because there's so many beautiful shades in this, and there are some really beautiful neutrals that I feel like I could get some good use out of day to day. So I need to pull this back out and get some more use on this before the year's end. But keeping Flying Fiddles. Ooh, then I have my Minka palette, which is such a beautiful palette. It is more of like a molten metallic formula though, and I just never reach for this, but I feel like, ooh, that is like a chunkier metallic, more emollient too. Like that did not swatch the best right off the jump, but also, oh, I feel like stuff could layer so beautifully on this. I have not done a great job. Oh god, that's so pretty. I have not done a great job of reaching for this palette. And I think, is this one of the ones that they reformulated? Wow, that's stunning too. Okay, I think I'm gonna keep this, but I do need to make more of an effort to reach for that. Then I have my Ninhydrin eyeshadow palette, which I love. I just don't reach for this one enough either. This one is like one of those eyeshadow palettes in my collection that just makes me happy to look at. Just the color in this, the way that the palette is laid out. This shade ACI 20. I feel like I need to get use out of these because I don't know, I don't remember them being maybe quite as chunky, but maybe they are. Also, this one, oh my gosh, like how freaking beautiful. Okay, seriously need to make an effort to reach into this more. It is a shame how little this has been touched the last like year or two, and it's so pretty. But I'm gonna keep Ninhydrin. All right, then I have the Heather Austin eyeshadow palette, which is another really, really beautiful one. Although I will say, opening this up, I don't know if I feel as inspired by this one as I do the other two. I really love the shade Passport. Oh, yeah, I really love the shade Passport. That is such a pretty shade. Austin. Oh, yeah. Okay. I also know I love video chat, especially in the summertime, for like just a really fun, sorry to like be blinding you with the light, just a really fun like bronzy shade. Okay, looking at my swatches though, I'm like, I really love the shade Passport. And so that is definitely a shade that I feel like I would be keeping this palette for. I like the shade Austin, but I feel like I just don't feel as inspired by the whole color story from this palette as I once did. And it's been a while since I've reached for this too. I'm like, do I want to put this in a maybe, or do I just want to? I feel like I have so many like similar ethereal shades to this. Maybe not an exact like dupe to this. It is such a pretty shade though. But I also don't want to keep a palette for just one shade. And I know I could also depot this, but do I want to do a maybe pile? You know what? I think I'm ready to just let this one go. I want to be a little bit more ruthless in this declutter. I want to not keep palettes for just one shade, and I truly feel like I would be keeping this palette just for this shade alone. So I am actually ready to pass the Adept Heather Austin palette along. We're gonna get through one more palette and then I'll wash my hands. I have the Plain Jane Remastered eyeshadow palette, which I also really, really like, but I feel like this is another one that I feel like I'm just keeping for like 3 shades, maybe even 2 shades, like ACI 15 or 15. Can I read? This is a really beautiful shade. It's like one of those warm pink shadows that has kind of that peachy pink warm sparkle to it, but I definitely have that. I definitely have a shade like this quite a few times over in other palettes. I do really enjoy AC18, which is kind of like one of those like ethereal blue brown shades, but I definitely have this one also a million times over. And realistically, I do, like, I always complain about how much I struggle to reach for this. This is obviously an all shimmer palette, so it's more of a companion palette. I think I might be ready to give up Plain Jane Remastered too. I also think I can let this one go. I actually was not planning to do it. No Pain Left Behind did this earlier this year, and I was like, I'm definitely keeping this. I'm ready to let go of Plain Jane Remastered. Okay, next up I have my huge stack of Bella Beauty bar eyeshadow palettes. Just letting you guys know, I don't think I'm going to get rid of any of my Bella Beauty bar palettes. I love Bella Beauty bar. They are one of my favorite brands. I am an affiliate with the brand, but I have purchased every single one of these eyeshadow palettes on my own, and I just love them all so much. So up first, I have the Morally Grey eyeshadow palette. This was launched around Valentine's Day this year, and I know this is not everyone's favorite palette. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I also love this palette for something a little bit more like simple and easy for every day. I love the like shimmer shades in this palette. I think they are absolutely stunning and beautiful. I like the desaturated mattes, and I think it's a cute little 9-pan. So I'm gonna keep that. I was thinking if I were to get rid of any of my Bella Beauty bar palettes, the Green Goddess would potentially be one of them. I wasn't as impressed with this palette as I am typically. However, I do really love the shade Renewal, Balance. Enchant is such a beautiful shade. I like most of the like shimmer special shades in here. I just wasn't as impressed with the mattes. I know it's a little bit different than what they typically do. Again, we're getting a little bit more desaturated mattes, kind of similar, but obviously a different color story to the Morally Grey. Not my favorite that they've ever come out with, but I do really still like the special shades in here. So I'm gonna keep Green Goddess. Then we have the Unoriginal Nudes eyeshadow palette for a spicy neutrals palette. This one is so fun. I will say it's not my most favorite of all of my Bella Beauty bar palettes, but I still really love this one. I've reached into Token Shimmer quite a bit as just like a lid topper. I have used every single shade in this palette. I think this is beautiful. I will say, what will I say? Just the selection of mattes, I maybe personally would like something a little bit, I don't know. It was the matte shadows just weren't like my absolute favorite. Some of them, just in terms of like the actual shades on the lids, I kind of wish some of them just read a little bit more rosy and not quite as like neutral brown or warm brown, but personal preference. Still really beautiful palette. We have the Ocean Jewel palette, which is such a fun palette. Obviously not an everyday sort of palette for me. However, I love neons, so I think these three shadows on the bottom are so fun. I also love Periwinkle and Lavender. I don't know, there's shades of purple that I just think are stunning. I will say purple is not my like favorite color to wear on my lids, but I love like these three purples. The shimmers in here, again, so beautiful. Just such a fun palette. So keeping that. We know I love the Vamp palette. I think this is a gorgeous palette. I even love the reds in here. Definitely feel very inspired. Like if I wanted to do a red look, I would definitely reach into this palette. I love the shade Claudia, Skin of a Killer. So many good shades in this palette. I like that we have a lavender matte. Definitely keeping the Vamp. Basic Witch is one of my all-time favorites, and it was my first Bella Beauty bar palette. This is absolutely not going anywhere. Such a fun color story. Great matte quality, wonderful, beautiful, shifty shimmers, just a great palette overall. I think this is the newest one that they have come out with. This is the Come Play With Us. I actually have not finished testing this eyeshadow palette. I've only done 1 or 2 looks with this one, but I was really pleased with the looks that I did create. Kind of a fun take on a holiday palette with the red and green, but also the mix of blues. And then I like that we have a couple of pops of neutral as well. And then it's a little bit spooky on the outer packaging. The Realm of Fairies palette was also one I was thinking like maybe I would possibly declutter. It's just not a favorite of mine. And actually, I'm like, should I declutter this one? You guys know I love blues. So I'm like, why would I ever think of getting rid of this one, which is like a mostly blue palette? I just don't feel as inspired by this one. And I've definitely been a lot more into like neutrals with a pop of shimmer. I think I actually might declutter Realm of Fairies. I just would rather pass this along to someone who's gonna get more use out of it than I would. And this is like the one palette that I'm just like, I don't get excited to like reach into this, mostly because I do really try to reach into just 1 to 2 eyeshadow palettes per look. I believe one of you had said I could mix and match some of these with my melted mattes, which is something that I could do. But I honestly would rather just pass this along to a home where it's going to get more love. I actually think I'm going to pass this one along. I can't believe I'm actually decluttering one from Bella Beauty Bar. Then I have the Recently De-Influenced palette, which I absolutely love. This is one of my favorite shades in my entire collection, the shade Backlash. The shifts in the special shades in this palette are just next level. This is such a stunning palette. I love Recently De-Influenced. Then I have Strange and Unusual, and actually, in the spirit of like not feeling so overwhelmed. I mean, this is like the style of shade that I really love, like a shifty greenish tealy shade, but I definitely have that a million times over. I love neons, but this is like more of like a mid-toned neon, and I definitely have another neon palette that I'm gonna keep. Plus I kept the Ocean Jewel, obviously. A lot of the shimmers in here are a little bit deeper. I feel like the reason I would be keeping this palette is for like that collector in me. Like it's, oh, that's so fun though. Like would I regret? Actually, I feel like I do really like the theming around this one too. I feel like I would declutter this one and regret it. Okay, I'm keeping Strange and Unusual. I'm keeping it. The Coalescence palette, I have not even gotten around to testing yet. Shame on me. I'm feeling so overwhelmed by my palette collection, as I likely will say in the introduction. I haven't filmed the introduction yet, but I just feel overwhelmed by my eyeshadow palette collection. That's why I want to try and declutter some to make more room to test and try, and also love the things that I love. Definitely keeping Coalescence. I think that's a beautiful color story, and it does actually really inspire me. I really love the Angles of Illumination palette from Bella Beauty Bar. Beautiful all shimmer palette. I know I had decluttered the Plain Jane Remastered, which is also an all shimmer palette, but this, I don't know, this just speaks to my soul a little bit more. I love the selection of blues. I also really love the shade Sunlight down here. The bottom row has some really fun shadows as well. We've got some beautiful blue browns, and I do feel like I get decent use out of this palette. I'm definitely going to keep that. Dead Roses is not my favorite color story, but I think this is such a fun one. I like that we have the fun pops of like bright pinks, and some of the fun pops of matte colors in here I like to have in my collection. Again, not going to be my most reach for everyday palette, but I think this is a fun kind of anti-Valentine's Day themed palette. Definitely going to keep that. Obviously keeping Poison Garden, which is my favorite Bella Beauty Bar eyeshadow palette. Oh, just looking at it makes me so happy. Love this palette. I've raved and raved and raved, so I won't go on and on and on. Then I have the Melted Mattes palette. I love this for the fun neons, but then we obviously have 2 rows of more neutral brown shadows or warm brown shadows. I do really like the Bella Beauty Bar matte formula, so I am going to keep Melted Mattes. And then finally we have the Secret Garden eyeshadow palette, which is also such a stunning palette. It is a very large palette, but there's so many beautiful shadows scattered throughout this palette, so I'm definitely keeping this. All right, then we have my collection of Blend Bunny eyeshadow palettes. There's a few that I haven't gotten around to testing here either. Don't judge me, you guys. I know I need to dig in. Do I need to zoom out a little bit? I know I need to dig into my Garden of Stars palette. It's just so pretty. It's so pretty, but there's so many shades I feel like I could just pop into like an everyday look. Ugh, it's just so pretty. I don't know why I'm struggling to get myself to use this. I'm obviously keeping this. I'm also going to keep my Efflorescence 6-pan ethereal palette. I love this just for like an inner corner palette, and also just like, I love ethereal indie shadows. They obviously probably all look pretty much just like white as you're looking at it, but these are just like that beautiful fluorescent sort of shadow. Nothing super, super special, but I love to have something like this for inner corner highlights specifically to add just like a little pop of color to looks. So I am going to keep that. Okay, this is where it gets so tricky because I have my Beauty Below palette and I absolutely love the outer packaging of this palette. Like 12 out of 10, quite possibly my favorite like outer packaging of a palette ever. I purchased this when this launched earlier this year, and I like that Blend Bunny did something a little bit different than what they normally do. It's definitely a lot darker and grungier, but I have had this since I believe March of this year, and I still have not finished No Pan Left Behinding this. I think there are some beautiful shades in here. I love the shade Mesmerizing. It's a beautiful kind of shifty, like almost like green brown sort of shade. I think that shade is so pretty, but because this is overall just like a darker palette, these are not the types of shades that are like making me feel pretty or that I'm like inspired to reach for. I do really like to reach into a palette and just create a look using just that palette. Since starting my No Pan Left Behind series, that is something I really look for in a palette, is just reaching into one palette to create a look. I am willing to reach into other palettes, but I'd rather just reach into one eyeshadow palette. And I don't feel like I necessarily feel like I know what I want to do with this palette if I'm just using this palette. And I don't want to keep an eyeshadow palette just for the packaging, although the packaging is so beautiful. And I also don't want to keep a palette that has so many shades that feels overwhelming just for one shade, because realistically I'm not going to reach into this palette just because I want to reach into this one shade that I likely have something, you know, relatively similar to this in another palette. So it really does pain me because the packaging is so beautiful, but I am going to pass along my Blend Bunny Beauty Below palette. All right, then I have the Rotten palette, which I'm definitely keeping. I think this is such a fun eyeshadow palette, such a fun and unique concept. It is all mattes, but I like that we have a selection of neutral shades. I like that we have some lighter pastel shades. This reminds me of the Natasha Denona Safari palette from back in the day. I don't know, there's just such a fun selection of colors in here. Blend Bunny has some of the best mattes on the market in my opinion, so I am definitely keeping the Rotten palette. I am also definitely keeping my Divination palette in collaboration with Robert Welsh. I think this is a beautiful palette. I'm not the best at reaching for this one, but I like the way that this palette is laid out. I like that we have some neutral rows on the bottom. I like that we have these fun bright colors on the top. I like that we have in each row 3 mattes and then 2 shimmers, a light shimmer and a dark shimmer. It's such a beautiful palette. This row right here is something that I feel like I can get away with wearing to work. These 2 metallics are just so beautiful. I especially like the shade Psychic for a more like mid-toned neutral metallic. I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful shade. So I'm definitely keeping this. And then I will also keep my Surge palette simply because I love having the neons on the bottom. And this palette has really pushed me outside of my comfort zone. I've had a lot of fun creating looks with this palette that are definitely not something that is like my day-to-day comfort, but I think it's a fun palette and a good palette to keep around because there is so much color in here. And again, the Blend Bunny mattes are so good. So this one is also gonna stay. All right, next up we have my ColourPop eyeshadow palettes. I don't have a ton left from ColourPop. I've never been like the biggest ColourPop girly, but I've definitely owned more in my lifetime. I will say I do feel like their quality kind of fades over time. I mean, as do some. As do many eyeshadow palette brands. I have the Wild Child palette, which I do still really love and enjoy. I think this is such a beautiful color story. I especially like this for the summertime for something a little bit more warm, sultry, and deep. So I am going to keep Wild Child. I am also going to keep the Lil Ray of Sunshine palette. I think this is such a fun palette, especially for the fall time. I do love a little curated 9-pan eyeshadow palette. I do find the quality on this one still performs quite nicely, so I will keep Lil Ray of Sunshine. Limoncello is also a just favorite palette from me. The only thing about this one is I do feel like the quality on this one definitely has faded over time. I don't know if I'm ready to let this one go. It's just like the shimmers are definitely not what they used to be. Ugh. I don't know, because this has been like such a long time favorite palette. I feel like if I was reaching into this, I definitely would have to reach into like something else. Do I need to keep this? Probably not. But it would just feel so sad. Ugh. It would feel so sad. The thing with this one is like the matte still performs so well. I'm not ready to give this one up. I'm just not. I'm just not. This has so many good memories tied to it. I'm keeping this one. We're gonna keep this one. I am, however, ready to let go of the Muppets palette. This is just not a love for me anymore. I do feel like the quality on this one has faded some. I think the color story is so fun, and I really love this palette and had so much fun with this when I first brought this into my collection, but it's just not something that's like sparking creativity with me anymore, so I will let the Muppets palette go. All right, then I have my Paleo palette from Cleota, and I'm a little bit torn on what to do with this one, simply because there were some matte shadows in this palette that just really were not that great. I'm trying to decide like how many of the shimmers I really like would want to keep. Like I think that shimmer specifically, like that's so pretty. And I do love the shade Crater, like that is also so pretty. I'm gonna keep her. I'm gonna keep the Cleota. This one was expensive too. I'm gonna keep that one. All right, then I have all of my Cosmic Brushes palettes, which I think I'm going to keep all. Maybe there's one that I would consider possibly decluttering. So I have the Smolder palette, which I have not quite finished my testing process with. There's still a few shades I haven't reached for, but I do think that this is a stunning palette. I really enjoy this palette. I do really like the Cosmic Beauty formula. I think they have really good quality mattes and stunning shimmers, very metallic. Their shifty shadows are so beautiful, and I feel like they keep their prices at such a fair and reasonable price. So keeping the Smolder palette. I also really enjoyed the Lovers palette earlier this year, so I am definitely going to be hanging on to this. The Neutrals palette is one that I loved last year. This was one of my top ranked palettes of 2024, so I will definitely be hanging on to Neutrals. It's the Muse palette that I am kind of torn on whether or not I want to keep this. This is another one that I really like a couple of looks that I created with this, but I feel like when it comes down to it, the color story throws me off a little bit, and the shades that I'd really be keeping this palette for would be Ambient here, and then Antique, which is such a beautiful shade. There is Ambient, which is a pretty blue-brown shade. Ugh. Antique is such a freaking beautiful shade. But the thing is, I definitely know I have something similar to Antique, and then it's like, if this wasn't in my collection, and this is a larger palette too, like 20 shades, do I really want to keep a large 20 pan eyeshadow palette for like 2 shades? But Antique is so pretty. I feel like I wish I like knew the exact shade that could like dupe this and make me feel okay about decluttering it. I know I have similar things to this in my collection. Like I know I do. So I feel like my heart's telling me I can pass along the Muse and it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Okay. Passing along the Cosmic Brushes, the Muse palette, definitely keeping the Undergrowth palette. This is such a stunning palette for a green lover. The shifty shades and the special shades in this palette, like I don't even have words for. They're the best that Cosmic Brushes has done, in my opinion, that I've tried. I have not tried every single palette from them, but just so stunning. So I'm definitely keeping that. And then I also have the Cool Chills palette, which I also really enjoy. I think this is beautiful, so fun. I like that we have like our periwinkles, our blues, our kind of like, I love this pop of like almost like a desaturated bubblegum pink. It's so fun. I had so much fun creating some like wintry-esque like snow fairy sort of looks with this last year. So I am going to be keeping the Cool Chills palette. All right, next up, I think we all know that I likely am not going to be decluttering any of my Danessa Myricks palettes. So I have my Lightwork Volume 3, which was my first Lightwork palette. Absolutely love. Then we have Volume 4. Again, absolutely love this eyeshadow palette. Just so special. 6 cents. I'm like, maybe that's a little bit more shifty than that. Yeah. I was like, oh, is this a dupe to the shadow I just swatched from the Muse palette? Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. Then I have my Lightwork Volume 5. Again, absolutely love. We have Volume 6, which I love. And finally, the most recent, we have Lightwork Volume 7. I did also get the little pastel palette that came out earlier this summer. I'm also going to keep this. I really like this for a cute little 6-pan palette. Obviously, you can, these are magnetized, so I could mix and match with some of the other Lightwork, like Volume 6 and 7 if I wanted to. And then I have, okay, so I have 2 of the Groundworks Defining Neutrals palette. I have this one, which I got in my lucky bag in 2024. I clearly love this palette. It is my most used palette in my entire collection. And then Leanne sent this to me, which thank you so much, Leanne, for sending me yours as a backup. I'm so happy to have 2 of these because clearly I get a ton of use out of mine. And as soon as this shade is done, I will be looking for another eyebrow pomade, which I now have. So definitely keeping these 2. Then I have my Blooming palette, which I'm like, do I need? I never reach for this. I really should just declutter this. I literally never reach for it. Why am I struggling? Why am I'm gonna declutter this. I literally never reach for this. I think I love this so much. I'm like, in theory, I should reach for this so much more. And I'm like, ugh. Like these beautiful dusty shades, it's fine. I don't need it. I'm gonna declutter the Romance because this would just be another thing taking up space in my collection that I told myself when I went into this declutter. I need more space to use the things I love alongside testing and trying new things. Okay, then I have a couple more brands that start with a D. So from Day Day Signature, I recently got the Broken Jewels palette. I haven't even dipped into this, but I'm obviously keeping this. I literally cannot wait to play around with this. Like these shades, this shade, this cannot wait. Cannot wait. Definitely keeping that alongside my Diveroon Dewdrops. This is definitely going nowhere. I love this little 6-pan companion shimmer palette. I reached for this one so much this year. This is such a little fun palette. I love my Diveroon Dewdrops. I need to let go of Dose of Color Sassy Siennas. I can't tell you how many declutters this has survived, and I keep being like, if I don't reach for this next year, I need to declutter it. And then I don't reach for it, and then I still keep it. I gotta let this one go. That one's gonna go. And then I have my Dose of Colors Friendcation palette, which is my go-to country concert palette. I can't get rid of this. I literally cannot. It is so old in my collection. It's so old. But like it still swatches just fine. I like the selection of mattes. I can't declutter it. Dose of Colors Friendcation survives another day. Okay, moving on to Fantasy Cosmetica. I don't think I'll get rid of any of my Fantasy Cosmetica. I really enjoy Fantasy Cosmetica overall, just as a brand. The Monk palette released earlier this year. This is such a stunning palette. I absolutely love this eyeshadow palette. Definitely keeping that. The Druid palette was my first palette from them, and actually I feel like this shade is exactly what that antique shade basically was that I was struggling to declutter from the Muse palette. I'm definitely keeping Druid. It's not my like favorite of all time, but I really do love these 2 special shades, and I like this shade as well. So I'm gonna keep Druid. Then I have the Enchanted Autumn palette, which I do think is a stunning eyeshadow palette. My one thing with this one is it is another palette that overall, for the most part, is just a little bit darker. Okay, I'm gonna swatch the shades that I would keep this for, which Emerald I think is such a beautiful shade. I'm actually curious how Emerald swatches compared to this shade out of the Danessa Myricks. Is it that shade? I think it is. Okay, those are definitely not the same. Okay, Emerald is really pretty. I just feel like I like this palette for like these shades. This is the shade Scorpio. Ooh, Scorpio is like a really beautiful green brown shade. And then I also have Libra, which I do love as like a silver shade, but I'm wondering how close that is to this shade out of the Danessa Myricks. Okay, those are very similar. This one maybe almost has like a bit of a blue reflect to it. This is like one of those things where like, I loved the looks that I created with this palette, but I also felt like I felt a little bit stuck on what I wanted to do with the color story. I do really like those two greens though. I'm wondering if I have something similar to emerald, and I definitely feel like, okay, from Sydney Grace Tiny Marbles, I feel like, well, maybe Scarab's more, oh no, Scarab, okay, Scarab would be like, I get that they're not the same, but those would suffice. So then it's really emerald. And I'm like, what? I again, don't want to keep a palette just for like the sake of the palette. I think this is a beautiful palette too, don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to be a little bit more cutthroat. And when I think about it, the things that get me excited about this palette are just like the couple of metallics. I feel like I'll be okay if I pass this one along. I'd rather pass this along to someone else who's gonna be able to just have more time to use such a beautiful palette. Again, I think this is a beautiful palette. I really like the shade Emerald and Libra specifically. I just don't feel like, I just don't feel like I need this. I'm gonna pass it along. I was not planning to do that. Okay, we're gonna be okay. And then I'm definitely not decluttering my Harvest of Soul palette. I absolutely love this palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. Like, absolutely love. I love these two blue special shades. Oh wait, let me swatch this. Okay, not the same, but I'm gonna be okay. Can you tell I'm really struggling with that one? But I have way too many palettes, you guys. Okay. Love the blue special shades. I think this is a beautiful shade. Again, I don't always love purples, but I think this is a beautiful purple. I love the lavender. I love the pop of this, like, the shade Poison is just so fun. Definitely keeping Harvest of Souls. This one from Flower Nose, oh, I don't even know what this was. The Moonlight Pearl palette. I got this earlier this year. I have not reached for this even one time. I think this shade looks really pretty, but I don't see myself reaching for this since I haven't yet. And I also feel like, dang, that is a really pretty shade though. I feel like my daughter would actually really enjoy this, so I'm gonna pass this one along to her. Then I have the two remaining Glamlite palettes in my collection. I am ready to declutter the Glamlite Chocolate Martini palette. I was trying to complete this No Pan Left Behind earlier this year, and I just was not feeling motivated or inspired to reach for this. So that just kind of tells me that I feel like my time with this palette has come and passed. This is a palette that I really loved at one point in time in my collection, but it's okay to like move past something. It's okay to have once loved something and not love it anymore. And I am really trying to come to terms with that. I don't need to keep everything for the memories. So I'm gonna pass along the Chocolate Martini palette, and then I have the Ice Cream Dream palette, which is such a fun one. And I definitely don't have these shades throughout my collection. My only thing is I feel like this has sat in my collection for such a long time, and I just so rarely reach for it. And I keep it because I, again, don't really have these colors throughout my collection. But also I'm just like not reaching for color as much. I definitely have like shades like this. I don't reach for, here, I'll cover the mirror up. I don't really reach for mints. I feel like I don't need this anymore. And then there's that part of me that's like, but will I regret it? But I literally never reach for this. And I'm feeling like, I feel like my preferences have changed, and I feel overwhelmed in general by larger palettes. Like the 20 pan palettes from Cosmic Brushes, I feel like is pushing it. And this is a 36 pan palette. I don't think I need it anymore. I think I can let it go. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna let that one go too. All right, then I have my Glaminatrix palettes. I have the Nearly Natural palette, the new one that came out this year. I really love the Nearly Natural. Spoiler, I will probably be keeping my Nearly Natural original as well. They came out with this, I feel like after like so many people were requesting the Nearly Natural to come back, but they added a couple of shades and they took away a couple of shades. I think this is beautiful. I love the shade Smolder. I will say the selection of matte shades isn't my absolute favorite, but I love all of the metallic shimmers in this palette. I am going to keep that. I am also going to keep the Timeless Tones palette. I have been really, really impressed with this palette. It looks so boring to look at, but I love the selection of like special shades in here. The shade Dignified, ugh, is so pretty. So pretty. There's so many pretty shades in here, but I love Dignified. Everlasting, also so pretty. Just a beautiful, beautiful palette. So definitely keeping this. Next up, I have my Tones of Turd palette. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm going to declutter this. This palette kind of sparked me wanting to film my declutter this weekend. I was reaching for it this weekend, created a look, and I was just like, it was a really grungy, beautiful look, but I just was not feeling inspired by these colors. And I was like, normal Steph would keep this because it's Glaminatrix, and I love Glaminatrix as a brand. And I also like Tones of Turd. Like, I love the potty humor in this, but I just feel like this would sit in my collection and I wouldn't feel inspired to reach for this. And I would only reach for this because I felt like I like had to, or I like had to work my way through this, no pan left behind. I think this shade right here, the shade Dump and Dazzle, is such a beautiful shade. The marbled shade is really pretty. I like that we have this bright, vibrant yellow, but overall, the color story just is not what I'm craving these days, and I don't want to keep a palette in my collection that's just taking up space and making me feel guilty for not reaching for it when I could be reaching for other things that I just like better. So I'm gonna pass along the Tones of Turd. I'm gonna do it. Then I have the Crown Legacy palette. I created a look with this that I had so much fun with. It was definitely different for me, more colors in one look than I'm typically used to creating. I am going to be keeping this palette. I think it is beautiful. I love the Glaminatrix formula overall. I like the metallics in this. I think it's a really fun palette, so keeping that. Then I have my Glaminatrix Sugar and Spice palette. I have added, there were a couple shades I didn't love in here. A couple, like the matte color story just didn't really make sense to me, so I swapped out a couple of shades. This one, I'm like, do I need to keep this? Okay, the shade Nutmeg. Ooh, okay, Nutmeg is gorgeous. And then I do love the shade Basil as well for like an ethereal blue. I do love that. But the rest of the shades, do I care about? Not particularly. Like, do I? Maybe I, Okay, actually that's a beautiful shade. That shade Vanilla. Maybe I actually just need to like bust this out and no pan left behind this. Okay, I'm gonna keep the Sugar and Spice for now. All right, then I have the Rich Romantic eyeshadow palette, which I think is a really beautiful palette. Although, I'm like, do I feel inspired by this color story? Not really the mattes all that much. And the only thing I will say is the majority of these shimmers really do lean green. I do really like the Captivating shade though. Also does lean a bit green. I think this is one, I need to bust this out like around Valentine's Day. I think I could have a lot of fun with this. I feel like this is one, if I decluttered this one, I would regret it. I'm gonna keep Rich Romantic for right now. Then we have the Barely Basic palette. I think this is a beautiful palette. I love the way that this one is laid out. Again, I do really like the Glaminatrix matte formula. I'm not exactly sure what's happening with this matte shade right there. Hopefully that doesn't break on me. Love the way that this is laid out, so you don't really have to think about using this. I wanna see how close DIY is to Nutmeg. As I was saying, I love the way that this is laid out, so if you don't wanna think about the look you're creating, it's just like literally laid out right there for you. I like that we have like a mauve purple row. I like that we have like a warm brown. We have some kind of yucky greens and then more of like a smoky look. I really enjoy the Glaminatrix special formula. I feel like their metallic and special shades are that thinner formula that is really impactful on the lids, but it's not so squishy and emollient that you get like creasing with it. Really like the Barely Basic. And then I also have the original Nearly Natural, which I am gonna keep. I love this palette so much, and I get that the majority of these shades are basically repeats with the like new one that they came out with, but I like the mattes in this one a little bit better. I find them to be a little less powdery and a little bit more buildable, which I tend to prefer. And there's just something like so special about this palette to me that I do want to keep this one as well. I forgot one of my Glaminatrix palettes. This is the Glaminatrix Fairy Lights palette. This is a 6-pan all metallic palette. I bought this because it was like right around the time that I was first getting into Glaminatrix, and I kind of did that collector's thing where I wanted to buy them all. I just don't reach for this enough. Like, it's really pretty, but like, I definitely have, it is really pretty, but I have this a million times over. I kept the Molten Metallic, or the Mink palette from Adept. I don't need to keep this. I'm gonna let that one go. All right, moving on to all of my H palettes. So I have the Hung Van Gogh New Neutral palette, which I bought this year. I definitely did not need to buy this, but this is a nice kind of staple 8-pan everyday palette. Do I need this? Probably not, realistically. I swear when I swatched this in the store, it just looked so pretty. Probably don't need this, actually. Like, I'd rather reach into my Artist Couture Supreme Nudes and then reach into an indie shadow to put all over my lids. I actually am gonna let that go. That kind of surprised me too. All right, my Huda palettes. I have 3 of the Huda 9 pans left. I have the Wild Tiger palette, which one of my shades broke, which is such a shame. I think this is a fun little 9-pan. I really do like this shade. I really do like these 2 shades. There is something about this like metallic bronze shade. It has a bit of like pink running through it, but I can tell actually that's getting kind of old. I think I can just let this go. Like, this is like one of those warm pink shadows, one of those warm pink duochromes that kind of has that gold shift to it, but I definitely have this a million times over in indie palettes. I can let this go. I am also ready to let go of my nude medium. I really loved this for a long time, but I just don't feel inspired by this anymore, and I have other things in my collection I'd rather reach for, so I'm gonna let go of nude medium and nude rich. I just don't feel inspired by them. This shade though is so pretty, but yeah, I can tell the quality is definitely decreased in all of those, so I'm gonna let all those go. My Huda Rose Quartz definitely going nowhere. I absolutely love this eyeshadow palette. I think this is so pretty. This shade, oh, the shade, what is that? Blissful. Just such a pretty shade. That was not the best swatch, but every time I reach into this palette, I love the looks that I create. I keep looking at these 2 metallic shadows and I'm like, should I declutter this from Glaminatrix? I mean, realistically, those would probably be the 2, yes. Those are really beautiful metallics though. Okay, we're not gonna return to that. I'm keeping Huda Rose Quartz. Huda Icy Nude. You guys, I feel like for the longest time, I felt like I had to keep all of my Huda palettes because I was doing that collector's thing. This, I created some looks that I enjoyed last year. I also found this palette to be quite similar to the Cosmic Brushes Cool Chills palette. I would say the 2 shades that I like best in here are VVS. This is that really emollient squishy texture. There's VVS, like that's pretty, but I definitely have something similar to that in an indie palette. And then the shade Diamond Dew, ooh, again, that's flakier even than I remember. Yeah, I think I can let go of the Icy Nude palette. I think I'm perfectly fine to do that. We're gonna pass that along. Then I have the Huda Pretty Grunge palette, which looks like this. I will say I'm tempted to keep Huda Pretty Grunge because it has some of these like more dusty purple mauve mattes, which I feel like I haven't kept a lot of palettes with those shades, and they used to be some of my favorite shades to reach for. It's definitely been a while since I have loved that, but I feel like I do really like these shades right here. I also decluttered the one from Alter Ego that is the dupe palette to this. This isn't the most inspiring color story of all times, but I do actually kind of feel inclined to keep this more so for the mattes, which is kind of shocking. I kind of want to swatch the shade Haphazard here. I'm like, what even is this? Okay. And then the shade Rebel is really pretty, but that is, again, one of those more like flaky shades. Ooh, that is pretty. Okay, I'm gonna keep Pretty Grunge. Next up I have the Naughty palette, which I was heavily considering decluttering earlier this year, but then I no pan left behind at this, and I really enjoyed a lot of the looks that I created with this eyeshadow palette. I do like a lot of the mattes and shimmers in here, so I am gonna keep the Huda Naughty Nudes palette. Mercury Retrograde. This palette holds such a place in my heart. What would I be keeping this palette around for, aside from the memories? I don't think I can declutter this, actually. I don't think I can. I'm gonna keep Huda Mercury Retrograde. This palette is just like one of, I don't know why, but one of the most prized, one of the just like, it just, I don't know why this has very special memories for no real reason, other than I used to always say my life is in constant Mercury retrograde. And I just love this palette, so, but I never reach for it. I'm gonna keep it. I'm keeping that one. And then I have the Huda Empowered palette, which I really enjoyed when I first bought this, like when this first released, but I will say this color story just doesn't really speak to me anymore. This is a beautiful gold. It really is. And I also really love the shade Bold Moves right here, but the selection of mattes, I don't love, and because I don't feel the need to keep everything now, I don't feel like I have to do that collector's thing. I am ready to pass on the Huda Empowered palette. Then I have two palettes from ItsBel. I have the Flare palette, which I just talked about. I just did my Imageddon series talking about all of the palettes that started with an I, M, K, and an L. So if you want more thoughts on why I'm keeping or not keeping some of the palettes with those letters, I will leave that video linked. Okay, this I am keeping. I really like this. This shade Morganite is one of the like first of the like warm pink, gold, peachy, shifty shadows that I fell in love with. I've decluttered a couple other palettes with a shade like this because I said I have it in other things. Morganite would be one that I would think to reach for. I also really like this beautiful cobalt blue, and there's some other really fun shades scattered throughout this. I think it's a really fun 9-pan companion palette. I have really enjoyed having this in my collection. I am, however, going to be decluttering the Under the Full Moon eyeshadow palette. I really would be keeping this palette around just for the shade Full Moon, which I'm still half tempted. Honestly, I feel like I think I'm going to depot Full Moon and keep that as a single shadow. I think that's such a beautiful, like, silver sparkly shadow, but it has a bit of that like blue tealiness, like shifted, like it is, this is stunning. I'm keeping the shade Full Moon, but overall I'm decluttering the rest of this palette. I actually bought this palette for the shade Moonglade. I'm running out of room to swatch here, and I don't really love Moonglade as much as I thought that I would, but I am definitely depotting the shade Full Moon. However, this palette in general is being decluttered. All right, next up I have all of my Kaleidos eyeshadow palettes. So I have two of their quads here. The first one is Venus Trap. This is a pretty quad. The glittery shade is like, I shouldn't say glittery. Well, it is glittery. The sparkly shade is really beautiful. I'm just not inspired by this color story. It leans a little bit more cool toned and gray than I typically prefer. So I'm gonna declutter that. And then I will also declutter the Cold Brew palette. I was kind of hemming and hawing about this, but ultimately in my Imageddon, I decided I have other things. Like I have my Artist Couture Supreme Nudes. I don't need to keep this. I don't need to keep this. I also have the ABH Haze or Ember palette, which is basically the same size as this, but gives me 9 shades. So I don't need to keep that. I also decided it is time for me to retire the Kaleidos Escape Pod. So many great memories tied to the Escape Pod, but I'm just not feeling inspired by this palette anymore. I feel like it served a great purpose in my makeup journey. It is one of the first palettes that kind of got me into playing around more with color and really having fun with some more special shades, but I just don't feel like I'm excited to reach for this anymore. So I'm gonna let that one go. I am also going to let go of the Clarity Cosmetics So Amazing eyeshadow palette. This is another one though that I'm going to depot the shades Oh Ship and Don't Be Shellfish. I really enjoy both of those shades and I want to keep those in my collection. But aside from that, the rest of the shades, like the matte shadows in here just are not that impressive. This is an older palette. There's definitely better pastels on the market now if I'm wanting pastels. So I'm ready to let this one go as well. Flower Punk I'm definitely keeping. I talked about how I love this color story. My previous one was destroyed and then one of you lovely subscribers sent me yours and I'm so happy because I think this is such a fun color story. These two shades are not my most reach for or most used because I'm not a big like mint lover, but the rest of this palette I truly love so much. Love the packaging. This one is definitely staying. And then we know how much I love my Kaleido Sashimi City palette. I actually forgot to include this in my Armageddon video, but this is one of my favorite palettes in my collection of all time. So this one is definitely staying. All right, then I have all of my Kaja little trios here. I'm gonna keep the majority of these, but I am gonna declutter Taro Bubble Tea. I have said a couple times throughout this video that purples are just not my most reached for, and there's definitely some purples that I've really enjoyed in palettes that I have kept, and so if I'm gonna reach for purples, it's likely gonna be in one of the palettes that I talked about the purples in. I will keep this one right here. This is in Peach Madeline. I think this is a really beautiful one. I love the satin shimmer in this, as well as the more like metallic, emollient, squishy, high shine metallics. I really should stop swatching so much. I can't imagine how long this video is going to take to edit. I love the Kaja stacks. I think that they're really convenient. My two most reached for are Neutral Moment, which is an all matte. It's a great companion little trio. And then I also love Chocolate Dahlia. I've reached for a ton. That one has one satin shimmer and then two mattes. And then also Velvet Dream is an all matte trio, a little bit more warm. So I also really enjoyed that one. The Coral Sunrise. Do I want to keep Coral Sunrise? I said that I was going to keep this. Ooh, that top shadow seems very dried out. Maybe I do not need Coral Sunrise. Yeah, I don't think I need Coral Sunrise actually. We're gonna let that one go. And then I have the Cold Brew. Let me make sure this top shadow is not dried out. Ooh, that is such a pretty shimmer. And then we have, I'm like out of fingers to swatch with. Yeah, this Cold Brew one is a really pretty one to have. So I will declutter these two, but I will keep these five. Actually, I'm like, do I need Peach Madeline? Only because I just don't reach for corals all that. Nah, that one was pretty. Ooh, that one's not swatching the best though. Ooh, that really is not swatching well at all. Unless it's more of just like a sparkly, maybe it's just more of like a sparkly, okay, do I want this? Maybe I don't. You know what? I don't need Peach Madeline either. No, sorry. Yeah, Peach Madeline. I don't need that one either. Okay, so keeping Chocolate Dahlia, Neutral Moment, Velvet Dream, and Cold Brew, decluttering Peach Madeline, Coral Sunrise, and Taro Bubble Tea. All right, my LH Cosmetics, I kind of want to swatch this. The only thing I wanted to do with this one is swatch this. I want to swatch this. I don't know why. Oh, I was going to say I want to swatch it next to the Effervescent palette. No, that definitely has more pigment. Although, I feel like the only one I'm feeling really inspired by right now in this little quad is this shadow right here. I really loved this quad. This is like one of those things where it's like, I feel like I'm struggling to realize that I don't have to like continue to always, like my favorites can change. I feel like I've definitely swatched something similar to this that I'm keeping. Am I actually gonna declutter the Shimmer Saga quad? I hate this because I want to think of like the exact shade that I think this looks like. And also it's convenient it's in a quad, but the rest of these I'm like, I'm not feeling like super inspired by those three shades. I love this green shade. The thing is, I definitely know I have something similar to this. Okay, dipped back into the Druid palette, you guys, because I wanted to swatch this shade right here. And then when I went to swatch that, oh, I feel like the quality of this has just seen better days. That still swatches fine, but I have plenty of golds. I do really like, and this one still seems to be performing quite nicely. I wonder if I declutter this, but then just keep this shade in my singles. Just because I'm not reaching into this like really for the mattes. I think I'm also going to declutter the Druid palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. Not because I don't like it. This is just really old in my collection. I think I got this. I feel like I may have got this. Oh, I can't exactly remember. 2021, 2022. I don't know when this launched, but it literally is just a quality thing. Mine's just old. So I'm gonna declutter Druid, but I will pop that one shadow out. Okay, I'm gonna set Shimmer Saga aside. I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna see if I can find a shade that's similar like this in my collection that I can keep. And then maybe I will declutter this. This is my one true maybe for right now. I am gonna keep my Lawless, the Dreamy Dozen Duo. I really like this for just a boring, basic, neutral, everyday palette that has some really nice, impactful shimmers in it. No Pan Left Behind did this earlier this year. I really, really loved some of the looks that I created. I love this deeper, like satin taupey sort of shade. Really enjoy this palette. That one is definitely staying. I will also keep my Lethal Midnight Serenade palette. I think this is a pretty one. It's not... Actually, now that I look at this, I'm like, okay, what am I keeping this for? Enchantress and Tempest. Enchantress is like, again, one of those warm pink shades, but it's a little bit flaky and doesn't have the best wear time. My complaint about this palette is the wear time. And then I have Tempest, which is one of those pretty, like, blue-green shades, but and I do really like this shade too. Continuum is also really pretty. Also Ember, I'm like this purple actually. Okay, I think I'm keeping this. I'm keeping it for right now. I'm keeping it. We're keeping Midnight Serenade. And then I also have the Wildflower palette, which I really, really love and enjoy. And the reason I was ready to kind of move on from the Kaleidos Escape Pod was some of the bright mattes that are in the Escape Pod that I would miss, I feel like I have in this eyeshadow palette. So Lethal Wildflower is gonna stay. All right, next up, I have my two Menagerie eyeshadow palettes. I have the Pastel Pup, which I have decided I am ready to let go of. I just find that the pastel, like the formula of the pastels is not the most impactful on the lids anymore. It just doesn't swatch well. This is one that's getting quite old in my collection, and I really just would be keeping this for the shade Snowball, the cute packaging, and the memories, and that's not the point of me and my eyeshadow palette collection anymore. So I'm gonna pass that one along, as well as the Killer Purr palette. I really would only be keeping this palette for the shade Main. The quality in this was good. I just don't feel inspired by this color story when I'm thinking of creating just like looks using just this palette. I do think like the shade Antelope, the Hunt, and Main make a really beautiful look. I really enjoyed that look, and I think that the other metallic shades in this palette are also really pretty. It's just not a palette I'm excited to reach for. It's not something that makes me feel creatively inspired, and it's one of those palettes that I feel like I would be reaching for just to reach for. So I am going to pass this one along. All right, then I have my MAC Encrypted Kryptonite eyeshadow palette. I bought this because I wanted MAC Satin Taupe, and I thought for sure I was gonna keep this, but like, do I really need to keep this? I do like the shade Satin Taupe. I think I will keep this. Will I? I'm going to for now. I'm gonna keep MAC Encrypted Kryptonite for now. The Makeup by Mario Nature eyeshadow palette I actually really enjoyed. I am going to be keeping this. It's newer to my collection, and shockingly I enjoyed this palette. I wasn't expecting to because I wasn't a fan of the original. I do, however, think I'm going to let go of the Master Mattes, the original. I just was not super impressed with the quality in this eyeshadow palette, and I have other matte shadows throughout my collection that I'd rather reach for. I was wanting this to be a nice like all matte companion palette for like special metallic shades, but I just was not uber impressed with the quality, and honestly I'd rather reach into my Alter Ego Canyon palette for warm mattes and then pair that with, you know, whatever it might be. The colors I love so much, it's just unfortunately the quality of this palette just didn't work for me. All right, then I have my melt palettes. I am going to get rid of Melt Rust. I dropped this on the floor. This is something I've recluttered into my collection, like decluttered and recluttered. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. I dropped this, it's messy. It's time for this one to go. I am going to keep my Bad Side Zodiac palette. I think this is a beautiful palette. Can you tell I actually am trying to like let go of things? I feel like I'd be keeping this palette for, like, the quality in this one was really good. I was really impressed by this. But like, actually, do I need this? I loved the looks that I created using this palette when I first got it. I think that's also where I'm struggling. But I really do want to be cutthroat, and I feel like I don't need this. I actually feel like I'm going to declutter this. I'm going to let this one go as well. I'm going to keep Melt Gemini. This is not a most reach for palette, but this is like similar to Huda Mercury Retrograde. Like, I just can't declutter this. I just want to have this in my collection. So I'm going to keep that. And I will also keep the Melt Smoke Sessions palette. Again, not my most reach for it, not my most used, but I do really like having this palette in my collection. This is one of my, this is one of the palettes that like really got me into greens. So I do, let me just swatch the quality in this though. Ooh, Black Widow feels very dry. Ooh. Like, do I need to keep Melt Smoke Sessions? Honestly, probably. Honestly, probably not. I don't reach for it, and it literally just sits there. I really should just let this one go. Oh. This was my first melt palette, and I remember how excited I was for this. I'm gonna let it go, and it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna let it go, and it's gonna be fine. I do want to get rid of things, and like, realistically, I'd rather reach for a belt. There's other things I'd rather reach for. It's gonna be fine. I'm getting rid of it. All right, my Knoblock Glorious Glitter Lights palette. I do like having this. It's my only glitter palette in my entire collection. I don't reach for it that much, but when I do just want a fun glitter, this is a really nice one. I feel like these glitters actually adhere to the eyes quite nicely, so I am gonna keep that. Then I have my NARS palettes, which we all know I'm keeping Summer Solstice. Like, I'm definitely keeping Summer Solstice. I love this palette. It's one of my favorites in my entire collection. I will also keep the NARS Climax eyeshadow palette. I will say sometimes I struggle with some of the mattes, but I do really love all of the shimmers in this palette. So this one is definitely gonna stay. And then I have the NARS Stargaze palette, which I think I am going to declutter. It's funny though, today I was going through my phone deleting pictures because I'm running out of storage, and there was a picture of a look that I created using this lavender shade, and I was like, okay, this is so pretty. Maybe I want to keep this, but I definitely have lavenders throughout my collection we've seen that I've kept. That purple is really pretty, but again, I don't reach for purples that much, and I'm sure the purple in the Fantasy Cosmetica is similar. I don't need to keep it. But that purple is so pretty. I literally never reach for purples. One moment. Okay, I want to swatch the shade Eternal here. Okay, they're definitely not similar at all. I literally never reach for purples. Why would I keep this for just one purple when I never reach for purples? I was about to swatch this against an Aether Beauty shade. Okay, I can let go of NARS Stargaze. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. It's literally just eyeshadow, and I have so much of it. All right, then we have my Nomad palettes. I am definitely keeping the Nomad Polar Express. I really enjoyed this palette. I have not been the biggest fan of Nomad eyeshadow in the past, but I think this is a fun color story. I like that we have a mix of neutrals, warm tones, and then some fun pops of blue. Really enjoy the shade Polar. Really enjoy all three of these shades right here. This is a palette that I can wear to work. I've created work appropriate looks that I loved. I also like Silver Bell for a fun like bluey silver, so I am gonna keep Polar Express. Then I have the Nomad Chicago Speakeasy, and I really enjoyed this one as well. However, I haven't felt excited to reach back into this one this year. And granted, I haven't been doing my makeup all that much, but like, I just feel like I have these shades in other palettes that I prefer. I'm gonna let it go. I don't need it. I'm gonna let it go and it's gonna be fine. And then I have the Ghost Town USA. I like this palette, but I definitely struggled with some of the mattes. This entire row of matte blues and these two greens I did really struggle with. This metallic formula is that kind of like squishy molten metallic, but really beautiful. Like that is such a beautiful blue shade. I really like the packaging on this one as well. And while I don't think every shade is the easiest to work with, I do still really enjoy having this palette in my collection, so I am gonna keep this one. I realized I forgot my Lancome Idole Cafe Crush palette when I was going through all of my L brands. I am definitely keeping this. I really was surprised as to how much I enjoyed this. I feel like this purple might be similar to that purple from the Nars that I, kind of similar, maybe not exact dupes, but that I was struggling with. Also, I swatched the marbled shade from the Flying Fiddles palette from Adept next to the Linda Hallberg Shimmer Saga. They're very, very similar. However, the Linda Hallberg one has almost just like a bit of blue running throughout it. I think I'm just gonna keep my Shimmer Saga quad for right now. I feel like I'd be sad if I got rid of it. If I find a dupe along the way to that one shade, perhaps I'll declutter it, but as of right now, I'm gonna keep that one. All right, we are moving into Natasha Denona. Let me go through my minis first. I have the mini nude palette. I have loved this palette so much that I repurchased mine because it was destroyed, so I'm definitely keeping this one. I have mini pastel, which I do like having in my collection. It's definitely not my most reached for. I'm like, do I need to keep? Yeah, I do. I like having this one. I do like having this one for fun from time to time. The Mini Gloom palette, I also really like this one, released this year. I think the blue brown in this is actually quite good, especially compared to the one, I know it's not like a shade for shade dupe from the one of her like original minis that I was so excited about and so disappointed by, but I really, really like this shade in this palette. I'm also keeping my Mini Sculpt. I love this palette, although my black, I should just get rid of the, hold on. Okay, dropped this palette several times and that black was completely destroyed, but good for me. I never reached for a black. I do really, really love these four matte shadows. Love having them in my collection, so I'm keeping that. Keeping the Mini Retro palette. The shade Galaxia is one of my favorite ethereal shades in my entire collection. I think it's such a beautiful, just like icy pink with a bit of blue running throughout it. I love that shade, so definitely keeping Mini Retro. And then I am going to be parting ways with my Mini Love eyeshadow palette. I think I will try and depot this shade, which I clearly love. I have a huge fan. I think it makes a really beautiful inner corner highlight with a bit of a pink sheen, like satin sheen running throughout it. But aside from that, I don't really care about any of the other shades in this palette, so this one's gonna get decluttered. I am also going to keep both of my eye sculpts. So I have the Soft. I do have a full dedicated review on both of these palettes. The Soft I actually have gotten so much use out of already. Really enjoy having that in my collection. And then I do also have the Dramatic, which I'm still working my way through. I still think this is a beautiful palette. I do like having this in my collection as well, just for some like basic everyday mattes. Even just use this as a companion palette, but I do really like some of these metallics in here as well. My larger palettes, okay, my Lila is currently mixed with my Biba. So I'm keeping all of my large Natasha palettes, but I had to mix Lila and Biba to get like a palette that I really enjoyed reaching for, which is this color story here. There is still some shades scattered throughout what's in my Biba right now that I like having, but like these shades right here I don't really care about, but I'm not gonna like, I don't know, I don't want to take everything apart, and I'm just gonna keep these currently mixed together. Perhaps I'll mix and match and do more like customizations in the future. I'm keeping Biba, keeping Lila, and then also keeping my gold palette, which I freaking love the gold. All right, then that just brings me to all of my Midi palettes. So we have the Retro palette, which looks like this. Not my favorite, not my most reached for, but to have this for like some dusty pinks, I do enjoy some of the shades throughout this palette, so I am gonna keep Retro. I am going to keep Bloom as well. I was actually really surprised by how much I enjoyed Bloom this year. I wasn't expecting to love this one as much as I did, but especially for spring summertime, I think this color story is beautiful and I've really enjoyed the looks that I created with that palette. The pastel palette I am ready to part ways with. I just do not feel inspired by this color story. I would really be keeping it for the shade Limoncello, Zest, and Bubble, and I can find shades similar to that throughout my collection, so I'm ready to pass on the pastel. I am also ready to pass on the Retro Glam palette. This just is not my favorite color story. I don't feel inspired by this. I just don't love the color story. The shade right here, I can't even read that upside down, and also the shade Flutter I think are beautiful, but aside from that I just don't really care about this palette, so I'm gonna pass that one along as well. The Yucca palette I'm definitely keeping. I do love grungy greens, and I just think this is a really fun color story, something a little bit different for Natasha, so keeping that one. I will also keep my Glam palette. I think this is a beautiful palette. This is another palette I kind of like to use as a companion palette. I'll create like a matte base with this and then pair it with some of my single shadows or even just an indie shadow from another palette, and I do love having this palette for that purpose. So Glam is gonna stay. Zendo I'm gonna pass along. I thought the quality in this was really lacking and I just was not a big fan of Zendo ever. I've just kept it around because I have felt like I needed to collect them all for such a long time with the Natasha palettes, but I'm ready to pass on Zendo. I also am ready to pass on my Dream. It's just not a color story that speaks to me, not a color story I find inspiring. I just think that I don't really care about the dark mattes. I don't love a like raspberry shade like this, and then I just don't love some of these like peachy mattes that Natasha does sometimes. So I do not need my Dream anymore. I also am ready to give up on my Love palette. I lusted after this palette for so long, so I feel like I've really struggled to come to terms with the fact that this is just not the color story for me. I just don't love reds and pinks, and I've moved away from purples as well, so there's just really nothing for me in this palette. Ready to pass on that. I do love the I Need a Nude palette, so I'm definitely keeping this. I feel like I've fallen more in love with this palette the more that I have used it and reached for it and played around with it. So that one's definitely staying. Same thing with the I Need a Warm palette. I don't know that I've reached for this one this year, but I really, really loved this last year. I would have reached for this more had I been doing my makeup more in the summertime, but alas, I was not. So this has definitely been neglected, but I still love the selection of mattes and shimmers in this palette, so I am going to keep that. I also love my Golden palette, especially for everyday work appropriate looks. This is just such a handy palette to have in my collection, one of my favorites. So that one will stay. Then I have the Sunrise palette, which is my first and I think the first Midi palette that launched. I actually still really like having this in my collection. There are several shades scattered throughout. Now I'm saying this and I'm like, do I really need this? I love the shade Awakening, but I definitely have that. Like, I don't need this. Realistically, I don't need this. And I would keep this and maybe reach into it one time for like the shade Awakening, but I wouldn't create a full look with this palette. Like, Aster is pretty, but it's also getting old. I don't need this. Okay. I guess we're also decluttering Sunrise. I wasn't planning to do that, but there we go. And then finally I have the Xenon palette, which is not gonna be ever a most reached for color story for me, but I do love blues and I definitely see the blue hues running throughout this. I really enjoy some of the shades in this palette and I do want to keep the Xenon. Okay, I realized I forgot to include the Melt 12th hour stack when I was going through my Melt products. I am gonna keep this for the time being. It's not my most favorite thing ever, but I haven't finished using every single shade and I like the looks that I've created. It's just not my favorite formula to work with, but I'm still gonna keep this for right now. Then we have all of my Odin's Eye palettes. We have all of them. Okay, this is gonna be so tough. Okay, I have my Odin's Eye Christmas Eve palette. What would I be keeping this for? I would be keeping this definitely for Snowflake and Silvery Dream. Snowflake, I feel like kind of reminds me of... Silvery Dream is really pretty, but I definitely have things like that a million times over. Snowflake kind of reminds me of that shade from the ItsBel Under the Full Moon. But I almost like the ItsBel one better. Also Blue Star. Ooh, that one doesn't even like swatch the best. I was fully planning to keep the Christmas Eve palette because I have loved this palette, but I feel like I haven't felt inspired to reach for this. This was in my No Pan Left Behind earlier this year and I couldn't get myself to like finish it. I actually think I'm gonna pass on the Odin's Eye Christmas Eve palette. It's just makeup and it's gonna be fine. I can't believe it. Okay, I feel like I'm so proud of myself for some of these decisions that I'm making. Okay, then we have the Merry Christmas palette, which I do think I am gonna keep. There are a lot of shades throughout this that I think are so fun. Jingle Bell, Snowman, New Year, Bless. Let me just make sure these still like swatch okay. Oh yeah. Maybe not that one as much, but I also really like, let's see how Snowman swatches. I was swatching it by that Linda Hallberg one because I'm like, how, those two are quite similar. But let me just, okay. Yeah, Snowman is really pretty. And very similar to the Linda Hallberg one. Hold on. I'm not ready to give up the Linda Hallberg. I'm just gonna keep that, but I am also gonna keep this Odin's Eye palette. How does that one swatch? Not that great. How does New Year swatch? New Year's pretty. Okay, and I do like some of the mattes in here. I do. Now I'm like, do I need to keep do I need to keep this one? I suppose if Snowman is similar to the one in the Linda Hallberg, and I'm keeping Linda Hallberg, Little Star doesn't swatch that well anymore, neither does Jingle Bell. This pink does swatch beautifully, but how frequently am I reaching for a pink? This is so hard because like, these were like some of my favorite palettes when I first got them. Santa Star is beautiful, but I definitely have, you guys, I think maybe I can pass on Merry Christmas too. I think it's getting older. And it's just, I think I can let it go. I'm just actually surprised. Was not planning to declutter either of those. All right, then I have all of the Angie collabs. So I have the Trick or Treat palette, which I'm definitely keeping. I love the shade Witch's Brew. It is one of my favorite greens in my entire collection. That feels a little bit sticky. It's just such a fun shade. I love that. I've had some real fun creating looks with this palette, so I am definitely gonna keep this one. I also have the Lil Ghost eyeshadow palette, which I do really enjoy. Not quite as much maybe as Trick or Treat, but there are definitely some shades that I still love from this eyeshadow palette. I like that we have this really, really light pastel kind of lavender shade. I do really like the shade Boo. I also like Zombie, and I've created some really fun just looks with this palette that I really enjoyed. I also really like that blue. So I am going to keep the Lil Ghost as well. And then I have the original Hella palette, which also just really enjoy this palette. I really like the shade Fluorescence River, double-sided, actually has a pan in it. Even Hellfire is a really beautiful shade. I like that we have this matte kind of pale yellow. And this is another palette that I do really enjoy reaching for from time to time. So I'm going to keep that one. And then I have the Stone and Rock eyeshadow palette, which I really like the shade High Spirits as well as Cheerfulness. Oh dang, Cheerfulness is such a pretty shade. But the rest of the quality of this palette is just not good. Like, I just cannot justify keeping this palette around. So I am going to declutter Stone and Rock. I am also going to declutter Flora Story. This is another one that I was trying to No Pan Left Behind earlier this year, and I just could not inspire myself to do so. I do really like the shade Magnolia, Misty, and Lush, but not enough to keep this palette, so I'm ready to let that go. I am also ready to let my Mighty Monster go. I do really like all of these shades, but I don't want to just I'm not inspired by the color story as a whole. I really did struggle with some of the mattes in this palette. The shade Serpent Scales though is such a pretty one, but I have other things. I can let it go. And then also the Sea Talk palette. I again just struggled with some of the mattes in this palette. I still think it's a beautiful palette. I love Lauren May Beauty's channel, but I don't just want to keep this just because I like the collaborator. Like, I'd rather just not have one extra thing in my collection to think about and worry about. I do really like that blue, but I definitely have other blues in my collection. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna let go of the Sea Talk palette as well. Then I have my Persona Identity one, which I'm definitely keeping. One of my most used, most loved, most favorite palettes in my entire collection. Yes, this one is getting old, but it still performs just fine. So that one is staying. And then I have this Patrick Ta Major Dimension one, which I had kind of mixed my Major Dimension 1 and 2 together because I like the matte shadows in here, but I just, this is destroyed for one. And I just really do not like Patrick Ta as a person. I have a couple other things of his still in my collection. I'm not just decluttering everything, but the decluttering, like, this is just not even fun to look at. I'm gonna let that go. All right, moving on to all of my Pat McGrath palettes. I am finally ready to let go of my old Mothership Sublime palette. Mine is just destroyed. I've tried to keep this for way too long and just make this work for me. And it's just really time to let this one go. Then I have my Interstellar Icon Quad. I dropped this and it's definitely seen better days. Am I ready to let this one go? I feel like I keep it around for these two shades, but now with all of my indie palettes, like, I'm okay to let this go. I'm gonna let it go and it's gonna be fine and I'm proud of myself. Yay. Okay, moving on to my Mothership palettes. I have the Moonlit Seduction palette. I love this one. This one is going nowhere. I'm definitely going to be keeping this one. I do really like all the special shades. I will say the matte's not my favorite, but I am gonna keep that one. Then I have the Bronze Seduction, which was my first of all the Mothership palettes. I'm definitely keeping this one as well. Really like the special shades in this. This is one of the first greens I ever fell in love with. I like that we actually have some matte browns in this palette, and this is a favorite of my Motherships. Then I have this one, which not all of mine have the names on them. I don't know which one this is. I'm gonna let it go. I really would be keeping it for these two shades. I definitely have things like that in my indie palette collection. Someone else can get love out of a Mothership palette and it doesn't need to be me. The Pat McGrath Motherships are just overall not my favorite. I do really like my Moonlit and my Bronze Seduction. The Utopian palette, the Utopian Dream, I like these two shades. Like, this one's pretty too, but someone also loved this so much more than me. So I'm gonna let the Utopian go. Then I have this one, which I believe, was this the Divine Rose? Is that what this one was called? The only reason I'd be keeping this is for this shade right here. And trust me, I thought about keeping it for this really beautiful sparkly shade, but I just don't need to keep this palette for one shade. So I'm gonna let that one go as well. And then finally, this one I am gonna keep. This is the Sublime palette. I do really love and enjoy this one. I love this shade right here. Really like this lid topper. It's a more cool tone palette, but I have really enjoyed the looks that I've created with this palette. I know it looks super boring, but for a blue lover, this is like an approachable blue palette, so I do really enjoy having this one in my collection. So I am gonna keep this one. Okay, we are finally starting to wind down till the end. My R palettes, I have the two Rowan quads left. I have this one, which is the Mood Forever, which I am working on in my Rolling Project 10 pan. I'm gonna count this as a declutter simply because I will be decluttering this at the end of the year, no matter where we're at. These are cream shadows. They're definitely used and abused. They have seen better days, and it will be time to let this go at the end of the year. And then I have my Rowan 1111, which I'm gonna focus on in my Rolling Project 10 pan next year. So this one's definitely staying. I do love the Rowan quads, and yeah, it still feels like the quality is going to work for me. I have my Sugarpill Fun Size palette, which I will definitely be keeping. I love this for just a cute little 9-pan all matte colorful palette. I feel like I have decluttered like the Glamlite Ice Cream Dream palette, but this can still provide me those matte colors that I would maybe be wanting from time to time. So I'm gonna keep this. I also have my 2 Singe Beauty palettes that I recently got. I will definitely be keeping both of these. I have the Paisley Hoot, which I've really been enjoying so far. And then I have the Galactic Visitor, which I haven't yet dug into, but I'm so excited about this one as well. Sydney Grace Tiny Marvel is definitely not going anywhere. I love this palette. One of my absolute favorites in my entire collection. And then I have 3 from Simply Posh. So I have the Simply Posh Coastal, which I really love. I love Simply Posh's formula. I like the way that they lay out their palettes. I love their special shades, and I'm always really pleased with the looks that I create using their palettes. I did purchase the Down to Earth palette, which I haven't tested yet, but I'm so excited to. This looks so beautiful. And then most recently I did pick up the Gingerbread Bakery palette, which I did start to play around with, and I really enjoy this palette as well. So definitely keeping that. Then I have my Sigma Corderosa palette, which I do really like my Sigma Corderosa. It is very similar to the Bloom palette. I feel like I would be keeping this mostly for the shade Belle of the Ball, which, I mean, I have that a million times over. And then maybe like this, you know what? I think I can let Corderosa go. I've had this for a long time. I've definitely gotten a lot of love and use out of this palette. I think I'm ready to let go of Sigma Corderosa. It's fine. It's just makeup and it's gonna be fine. All right, next up I have my Tartelette in Bloom. Definitely not decluttering. I've repurchased this palette because I love this so much. It's just a nice, boring, simple, basic, easy on the go, work appropriate, everyday, easy reach palette. So I'm definitely keeping that. I am also gonna keep my Too Faced Born This Way Natural Nudes. I also like this for just, again, quick, simple, easy travel makeup on the go, easy for work. Definitely gonna keep that. I have 3 Viseart palettes, which we're not necessarily to V yet, but we'll just go through these now. I am definitely going to keep my Soleil La Plague palette. This is one of my favorites in my entire collection. I love the selection of colors in here. Really nice matte formula to work with. Definitely keeping that. My Midsummer Lumiere, this one is not my favorite color story. It's a little bit more pinky purple rosy toned than I thought it was going to be, but I still really enjoy this palette, and I do love the Viseart matte formula, so I'm gonna keep that alongside my Sirena Sue and Tendo. I can't. Absolutely love this. Absolutely love this palette. This is a really nice everyday one with like a fun pop of blue that like is still really approachable, so definitely keeping that. My Terramoon Space Chemistry palette. I'm gonna let this one go. I wasn't impressed with the longevity of this palette, and I would really be keeping this for the shades Moonwater and Light Particle. Moonwater reminds me of the shade from the ItsBel Under the Full Moon that I plan to keep, and then Light Particle is like, I don't need to keep this. It's fine. It's just makeup. It's gonna be okay. I talked a lot about how the mattes in this are terrible. I think this was extremely overpriced kind of for what it is, because these just don't last on the lids. That is a really beautiful shade though as well. Atmosphere. I just don't need to keep this though. I'm gonna let the Terramoon Space Chemistry go. All right, then I have my Unearthly palettes, which I don't think I'm going to get rid of any of these. I have the Murky Meadow, which is newer to my collection. I think this is beautiful. Love this color story and have really enjoyed the looks that I've created using this palette, so I'm going to keep that one. I'm also going to keep Fall Magic. I love the Unearthly formula. The shade Autumn is one of those like warm pink peachy gold shifty shadows that I keep talking about. I've really enjoyed some of the looks that I've created with this palette, and I like Unearthly overall as a brand. Also gonna keep Sorceress Smoke. I think this is such a fun kind of take on neutrals. I feel like it's neutral with a twist, and I just really enjoy this one as well. Really beautiful metallic shifty shadows that are a little bit more thin on the eye. They aren't quite as emollient as some indie shadows, so they don't tend to crease as much, which I really like. Also going to keep the Just a Taste palette. I think this is such a fun color story. I love the shade Haunted Heart. It's one of those kind of like ethereal pink blue sparkly shadows. The shade Mortal Dusk is again one of those kind of like warmer pink gold peachy shifty shadows that I've been talking a lot about. So going to keep this. And also going to keep the Gargoyle palette, which I recently brought into my collection, and I'm I'm hating myself for waiting so long to buy this. This is such a beautiful palette. I've had so much fun creating looks with this. I like that we have the fun blues and greens and purples, but we also have some pops of neutral as well, which makes it just a little bit more approachable. So I'm definitely gonna keep that. And then I just have my my Urban Decay Stoned Vibes, which I'm gonna keep, well, am I? I love Tiger's Eye so much. And I travel with this palette quite a bit when I've traveled. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this one for right now. I do still like having this one in my collection. So I'm gonna keep Stone Vibes. I am going to declutter the, what did they call this? The Naked Shaped palette. They sent this to me earlier this year and I think this is really boring and I don't feel super inspired by it. So I'm gonna let that one go. And then to wrap up this video, I just have my What's Up Beauty palettes and I'm gonna keep all three of them. I love the What's Up Beauty eyeshadow formula. I think they make really fun color stories and I'm just a big fan. So I have the Desert Monsoon eyeshadow palette, the Dragon Eye palette, and then also the Geo's palette, and I love all three of these, so keeping all of those. All right, you guys, that is going to wrap up the 2025 eyeshadow palette declutter on my channel, and I am so excited to say that we ended up getting rid of a total of 81 eyeshadow palettes today, meaning that we decluttered 40% of my eyeshadow palette collection. I only have 131 eyeshadow palettes remaining in my collection, and I cannot tell you the last year that I had under 150 eyeshadow palettes. It feels so good to have under 150, and I definitely want to by the end of next year have it a goal to like still, after my declutter, keep my palette collection below 150. We'll see what the years to come bring, but I am so pleased with myself for this declutter. Again, I'd love to know if you plan to get rid of any eyeshadow palettes before the season is over. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.